Go ahead and call this meeting of the Personnel Administration Committee for the Monroe County Council to order. We have a total of 6 agenda items today, but really 2 with serious action or discussion. So we'll start with item number 2, a request from the Highway Department for a new position, Stormwater Inspector. This was a tentative item on the agenda based on council discussion action at our meeting, which concluded last night and was continued from the previous week. And so with this, I want to open it up to, I guess, first Lisa Ridge and then any other staff that want to offer comments that perhaps we've not covered on this, because I know it's been addressed or talked about publicly for a little bit. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, yeah, actually, we've been discussing this for a couple years between our coordination meetings with the planning department and stormwater and the highway department. Neither department, I apologize, neither department has the staff availability for these more intense inspections that we feel that are required due to what we've been seeing with lack of what we are making the developers do, making sure that plans are being followed, that were approved through the planning department or the highway department in connection with stormwater facilities being installed. And we think that this can only assist in helping not eliminate, but decrease the problems that we have in the county with flooding and different areas that development goes on. Also, this position, since even creating this job description, IDEM is cracking down heavily and changing their permit process, which is going to require more inventories on our asset management, which we have a good start on, but it's also going to develop into more inspections, more inventories that we will be required to provide to IDEM. To keep up with these mandates, it's going to require more personnel. So this was one of the positions that we felt that is a dire need in the county. And if the stormwater fee is approved, I believe it might be on the council commissioners meeting tomorrow. And then, so we're just requesting for this new position and maybe during this time frame until we know if it's passed, if it can be sent to WISP for their review.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions, and I think Councilor Hawk, you might be having some audio issues, is correct? Not hearing us, Marty? Let me then start with Councilor Spoonmore. Any questions you might have?
I'm familiar with the position and I support the needs that we have for this role and needing to get this position hired. So I don't have any questions necessarily about the actual job and the job description. Just curious as to what the process is now. How quickly can we get this for its approval?
Once it's approved, I will send the questionnaire and the job description org chart on to WIS and ask them to go ahead and evaluate that one or classify it immediately so that we can get it back to WIS. So that normally takes a couple weeks. We should have something by the next PAC meeting.
Okay. And so we'll need to then review that evaluation by WIS, and then we would send it on to council for its review, and that would likely be at the soonest opportunity would be April regular session meeting.
Correct.
Okay. And that, is it all good with you, Ms. Ridge?
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with the process. It's been, needed for a while, so a month or 2 is not. I want to just. It'll be my goal to keep it processing forward on whatever that next step is, working with Kim and the council. So.
Okay.
And the stormwater board.
Gotcha. And I guess this question is for Kim as well. I know that we're going through the entire WIS process. Is it likely in your judgment that this is going to come back with the caveat based on the asterisk based on everything that comes back, this may have to have that. Okay.
Yeah, they'll come back with what they feel like it can be classified right at this moment in where we're at. And then like the others, they'll probably say, could be classified at a higher rating depending on the completion. So
is it better to wait on that? Or I mean, I don't know what WIS's timeline is on everything else if it doesn't muddy the waters.
It doesn't, for them, they're going to classify it at what they feel is the lowest rank or classification at that point. So it will not go below whatever that initial recommendation is. It could go higher based on what happens when they complete the review.
Okay.
But
I guess my only concern on that would be the candidate, I guess, if that makes any, whoever would apply for this position on where it would fall for pay and classification. I mean, we don't have anybody in mind, don't get me wrong. I guess I guess for what you would get if it's going to be at the lowest ranking versus what you could hire at maybe what it's actually going to be. That's
right. And right now, it looks like June is, what they're shooting for with regards to having the review done. So it's your timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that, about that timeline is, we've been talking about the WIS study for a long time. We're now March 2nd. And the results of that are barreling towards us, but ultimately I'm in favor of sending this on if that's your judgment, and then you make decisions about what works best for your process. Yeah. But we are in that wiggle room area of
that's fine.
Those asterisks, for lack of a better term for it. Councilor Hawk, did you have anything you wanted to ask? I think your audio's back, right?
You're still muted.
Still muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of it at all. So I'm sorry, I went out in the yard and started to work at what plants I was going to dig up, and I stayed out there too long. I didn't realize how long I'd been out there. So
it's a good thing to be doing.
It is. We can already see the plants coming up that I want to transplant. So sorry.
You're fine. I've got some daffodils I'm eyeballing myself, so that's awesome. Any other questions for Ms. Ridge or staff? If not, I would entertain a motion on this item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move to submit the stormwater inspector job description to WIS for its classification review.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will go ahead and do a roll call vote. Ms. Miller.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll move on now to item number 3. This is a discussion around job descriptions and the classification. We're adding terminology related to emergency personnel. And this has been added to our agenda as a beginning part of our portion of this discussion, knowing that we have some role in some of that terminology coming in, but recognizing fully that there are many other bodies within county government that are and departments that make a lot of those designations and work with this, and we would want to hear back from them first. But to start off here, I'm going to turn this over if Elizabeth is here and Kim Shell, and if you wanted to offer some words on this before maybe we ask some questions or have further discussion.
I'll start off with, and then maybe Elizabeth might want to jump in. We received some language from YSB with regards to the judge asking for some language to be put into their job descriptions regarding emergency personnel and which positions need to be listed or will be on call or listed as emergency personnel, in the future. And that just happened because of, the COVID, and we've had some shutdowns with, regards to snow and emergency days. So Elizabeth and I were talking that it might not be a bad idea to put some type of language in all descriptions so that no one can come back and say, I'm not going to do this because it's not in my job description. And then so we reached out to WIS and talked to them, and they kind of gave us some, like a blanket statement. And then they said that some counties handle it with outlining who is emergency personnel in their personnel policy handbook. So we were just wanting to get your kind of feedback on how you feel about just adding a blanket statement to all job descriptions regarding that. And then the COOP also outlines which ones are considered emergency personnel. But we just wanted to make sure that, our bases are covered. No one can come back and go, well, it's not in my job description and I don't have to show up. So this is more of a discussion since we've had, closures and, things still need to run and, with the COVID and that kind of thing. So that's where we're at on that. Elizabeth, you want to add in anything?
Yeah, I think that Kim covered it all. I had mentioned putting it in the personnel policy, but Angie reminded me that the COOP is noted in the personnel policy. So the personnel policy directs you to the COOP. So every department should have their own continuity of operations plan that indicates what personnel should report in the event of a government closure. So yeah, like Kim said, just if you feel like this is something that should be included in all job descriptions because some people may need to report. So like, I'm one of those people, I'm not considered emergency, or Jordan, he's a good example. Payroll still needs to be processed. He's not considered emergency, but when we're closed, he comes in and he makes sure that that's done. So not necessarily, some people know that their job description requires them to work 24/7, but there are others that may need to come in if there's a closure.
Let me ask the initial question to kind of get this started. And I recognize that this is likely a department by department, elected official by elected official, sensitive issue where things have been figured out over time and experience that are well beyond me. But essentially, if every department, every elected official, et cetera, has a COOP plan in place that currently designates who are those emergency personnel and who are not. Am I understanding that correct? Okay.
Yeah, they should.
Okay. And what we're being asked to consider would be either mirroring that in some form of language or designating beyond that so that there were greater options than what's in that COOP plan. Is that approximate?
I think it would be pretty vague, like just general language. It may be required to report in the event of a government closure or something like that. Not specific.
Yeah, it's a may statement and not a shall or a must. And then to me, then that says you can be called, but the COOP will absolutely set who will be called.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Spoonmore.
Just a couple of questions. The first one's kind of a general question. So when we have I'm just trying to understand how this works. When we have a county government snow day, I know how that works for like my daughter when they have a snow day at school. They just get out of school and she goes outside and plays all day. How does it work with county government? So they have the entire day off, and the people who aren't identified as emergency workers have the day off, and there's no requirement for working? It's like an extra day off? Okay.
Yes. Is that right, Elizabeth?
Yes, that is correct. I think that there are departments that, you know, there are different circumstances by different department. I mean,
Correct.
but if you
Yeah.
don't work on that day, you still get paid.
Got
I
it.
see, I saw a hand from Kelly Whitmer, and I'd love to hear from her. Kelly Whitmer.
Just so you know, like our staff isn't classified as emergency workers, but our park staff is out there even when the county declares an emergency. They're out at midnight, 1, 2. They're doing all the snow plowing for the jail, the youth services, dispatch, all the county parking lots, and then they get to parks
Yeah.
and they keep starting over. So just so you know, they're not emergency workers, but they're out there no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I'm wondering, you know, in that case, they're not considered emergency workers. It's not in their job description, you know, I don't know, but just say it's not. So maybe required to report to work would cover. What is in your job descriptions, Kelly? Do they have that?
Margie's been on this issue before, and
it's like, yeah, their job description, I think, does reflect, and we should double check this while we're doing our job description project. But
Yeah.
one of their job descriptions is that they plow snow during events and they keep track of certain lots. And so, you know, that's part of the job description. I think that certainly fine. You know, COVID and working online has certainly changed a lot of things. I know that during the last snow event, you know, there were clearly a lot of people working because, you know, I was sending and receiving emails from a lot of different people, even though it was a snow day. So I think the ability to work online has changed, and to work from home has changed things. Clearly, we have in job descriptions that says, you know, and all other duties as assigned. That's a general, you know, thing that would cover us. So if there were, even today without this blanket statement, there were an employee that were said, "Oh, too bad I'm not showing up," I'd be like, you know what? It says, and all other duties as assigned, and you're assigned to come in and do this if your boss says you need to. So it's probably a good idea to have a line that says, in the event of an emergency, you may be called, you know, you may need to report to work for everybody. That doesn't automatically make everybody emergency personnel, but it does
Correct.
come on notice that it's not just a snow day and you get the day off, and if your boss needs something, you don't have to respond.
No. It would, you know, for the people who can do their jobs from home, do we have anything in the job descriptions to that effect that would say if you can, you know, if the county's been closed due to weather, that you're still kind of expected to do your job from home if you have the ability to do that? I mean,
No,
COVID,
because we typically have not. Before COVID, the State Board of Accounts kind of took a hard line that they did not want government employees working from home because they were worried about ghost employment.
yeah.
So we typically have not had a lot of working from home. But I think, you know, the fact that, you know, COVID has sort of changed the way the world works, and we may see more working from home, and that opens up, you know, it's kind of like MCCSC. Now you have a snow day, not so much. You're just doing
Right.
online school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that when we have snow events, we aren't really, you know, it's not just a day off without pay. It's you're just working from home that day. Now there are the challenge is that there are some jobs that, you know, if you're not paving, you know, highway, for example, has a lot of jobs that you just don't have any work to do. And I guess snow days are bad because they're out there playing snow, but there are other people that, you know, they're not doing jobs on computers.
Right.
My 2 cents about the requiring people, not that we're going to make a decision or have a debate about that, but employees, you know, requiring them to work remotely when there is a government closure, like a snow day. There are other factors, I think, that play into their childcare, things like that, that I think probably play into the fact that that's why they get the day off. I don't think we're all in that situation, but just
Yeah.
something to consider.
And
Yeah,
that would be something that would be handled through the personnel policy handbook, right?
yeah. And this, I'm sure I will opt out, but I'm sure Elizabeth can tell you this will be a very spirited debate at
Yes.
the Personnel Policy Committee meeting.
Well, and that gets to my initial hesitation as we entered into this discussion. I mean, here's the ultimate end of this, that we've had, being the way that the county is, you have departments that have done things for a long time. They have traditions I couldn't even begin to understand, or how things work and how things operate. I wouldn't want to interrupt something that is either working well or has a system. I want for us to very sensitively and safely help departments do what they do, which is serve the public in a safe way for each member of that department. And I think as the beginning part of the discussion, I think that's kind of our huge factors as we're considering this. Other questions, thoughts? I know we have other people on here. Things you want to add to this discussion? Yeah.
I spoke with WIS, and you know, they're adding this statement to all job descriptions does not calculate in the factoring, because it is just a blanket statement. It's a may statement. So
Gotcha.
I just want to let you know that, so because we'd already talked to them about that. So
Thank you very much. Councilor Hawk, did you have a comment?
Right. I would just want to make sure that we're not calling them emergency workers, because we do pay additional dollars to like the people who do the snow plowing for the highway. And that, I think it's $1,000 a year. Have we changed that dollar amount? I think it's $1,000 a year. Is that
It's
still working? Right. So we wouldn't, and that was tied to, first of all, they're not allowed to go on vacation or take time off during snow periods. And that's not true with the rest of the county employees. So I wouldn't want to muddy the waters into getting that confused with what's going on with highway.
no, the statement doesn't reference anything with emergency personnel. It just says may be required to report to work in the event of a government closing. So it doesn't specify that it's an emergency closing. It doesn't specify that it's emergency personnel. It's just that they may have to report to work in the event of a closing.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Hawk.
Well, which one?
Yes.
Me? Yes. And in each case, you'd have to say, depending on department head, because let's say what the treasurer might do might be different from what maybe the commissioners would do or whatever. And we still have to remember each elected official. Well, I'm just trying to figure this out in my head. I want to make sure that no elected official thinks that we are telling them how to run their office.
That's
We can determine how much their people are to be paid and how many people they have. That we can do.
Elizabeth, you were going to add something?
That's the information that should all be in their continuity of operations plan.
Correct.
Well, that's kind of echoing on that. Ultimately, I agree with Marty. I don't want to be out there helping make decisions on something that that's not my gig, and it wouldn't be good at it. But I want to be, I think that whatever we do needs to be supportive of how that is currently done, and maybe uniformly speaking about the terminology that allows a department to do that. I mean, there's things that people know, things that people do, but you do have moments where someone says, Where is this written down that this is just like this? You show me. And I've seen that in supervisory roles, and usually there's something else going on there, but hey, that happens. So let me ask you this for next steps. Personnel Policy Committee is going to talk about this potentially, Elizabeth?
We weren't planning on talking about this issue with the job descriptions. No, I think that this is purely up to you and whether you want WIS to include that or not.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Spoonmore.
I'm fine to do this, but I just want to make, kind of like others have said, I think we need to, collect some information from the department heads, from the other elected offices, and just seek their buy-in and their input and their collaboration on this as well too, to see if it would, truly be helpful for them. And if we feel like it is, then I'm happy to accommodate that in the job descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you would like, we can certainly talk about it at the Personnel Policy Committee meeting. It just wasn't, because the job description is a little bit different than the policy manual. So
I just don't want
but if you'd like that feedback, I can get it.
I don't want it to be a surprise to anybody or a misinterpretation if we have an opportunity first to get everything clarified ahead of time.
Councilor Hawk. Go ahead, Councilor Hawk.
I don't think we should do any action on this at all. We need to hear from department heads. What I have heard is that some departments are going in every day, doing work that they might have been able to do at home, but they're being asked to show up every day. And then other departments who are opting to work at home, and therein is where I think there could be a situation where we have to treat employees fairly as well. So, nor do I think people should get paid more just because, they opted to show up for work. I mean, I think we all should be opting to show up for work when we are all healthy enough to do it.
So if what I'm hearing is correct, there's a general thought consensus that we do need more feedback on how any potential uniform codification of this into job descriptions might affect current actions related to those COOP plans and what currently departments are doing. Am I stating that correctly? And so I guess next steps on that might be for us to collect that. Any recommendation on the best mode of officially collecting that? Although I know we have probably some department heads on here now have either strong thoughts or opinions. What's the best way to collect this information?
I would suggest that Kim and Elizabeth perhaps could give a report back after the Personnel Policy Committee meeting. What do you think?
Yeah, we can do that. The personnel policy is meeting next week, so we could bring that information to the next PAC meeting.
And Elizabeth, do you know it's a larger conversation about working from home and sort of requirements for when you do work at home? Is that going to be part of the conversation at all?
It is on my list of things. I was on a Association of Indiana Counties HR training last week, and they did mention having a policy for remote work in your personnel policy, which we don't have, but it was suggested by WIS. WIS was the person doing that.
Yeah.
It was Tyler and Addie, and they were doing that training, and they suggested having a remote work policy.
And I would think too, along with this conversation, just it may, not every job is a job that you can work remotely. So I don't know how the council or PAC wants to think about that, but you might want to have that conversation with WIS, whether there should or should not be something in the job descriptions about the ability to work from home. Should each job specify that they have the ability to work from home or not, based on supervised.
I think my hope would be that would also be included in their continuity of operations plan.
Well, and one thing just to add in here is I think a lot of mindset around how you do operate in an emergency /pandemic strange situations has changed a lot of institutions. State Board of Accounts is a good example. They have had strong thoughts on this. And if you go to Government South, particularly at the height of the pandemic, you could have run the hallways and not found personnel. Things have changed for a lot of institutions as they're adjusting to it. The schools are another strong example. The traditional snow day has left us behind. Councilor Spoonmore.
I have a question for Elizabeth. Who all attends the personnel policy handbook meetings?
All department heads are invited.
Okay.
Some other people that are part of our department heads, like sort of core group. Like I'm not a department head, but I'm invited. But there are, I would say that not everyone comes, but there's a pretty strong group of department heads that routinely show up.
Okay. I wonder if it would be possible if we could send some kind of just a heads up that this will be discussed.
Yes.
And would like to have as many people there for their input as possible. I know I've got the invite, and I appreciate you sending the invite out earlier. I don't know if I'll be able to make that meeting, but I don't know that we necessarily need council members there. We've got plenty of coverage, I think, and we all know what the desired outcomes are here. So, but I think that would be helpful if we could just send them a nudge and let them know that this will be a topic that we want their input on.
Councilor Hawk.
It seems to me we could perhaps send a shout out to all the department heads and whatever, so that they can respond by email or whatever. So that, because not everyone feels comfortable to speak up in meetings.
Right.
Do I need to remind you of that?
I can do
That's
that.
a good.
Mhm.
That's a good point.
Let's not just count on the personnel committee people to get back with us. Let's give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts.
Right.
Good.
And one thing I do want to say, and again, I hope this echoes a message I had, I think it was our last PAC meeting. If there are things that PAC is doing, talking about, seems like it's broaching an area for any department head, or really any county employee, but for a department head in particular, if things are going on that you have any concerns, red flags, other issues, you are there day to day. You're seeing what we are not, very much so. So please know that at least I think I can speak for every counselor here. There's an open end to that conversation. I hope people know that. So it sounds like we've kind of reached the end of this discussion for item 3. Anything else related to that?
I don't think.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing it up. Obviously, this is a sensitive subject, much like everything else, but here we go. So item number 4 is the approval of summary minutes as presented. They're in your packet, counselors, from February 2nd, 2021.
Mr. Chair, move approval of summary minutes as presented in the packet.
And do we have a second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on minutes? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. Now we'll open up to any remaining comments by PAC members not on the list of things.
None here.
All right. Well, I just want to thank again Kim Shell and Megan, Elizabeth, and of course Margie Rice for all the work that they do to help PAC get to this point and all the fires they put out in these processes. I know that all the behind the scenes work is not always easy, but we appreciate it. And one good example of that is the WIS information coming back, getting around to us. That is a long time PAC effort, and I know has not always been an easy one for everyone in the county, and we appreciate that diligence. If there's no other business to come before the committee, I'll go ahead and adjourn us. Thank you, everybody.